moving on to section 1. We just want to have some cards with some information usually in your first section. So I'm going to remove the text and create a div in here. A div is just a container, yeah, for HTML. Inside the div, I'm going to have a P element, so for a paragraph. And inside the P, I'm just going to type lorem and tab. That creates lorem ipsum text for me. I'm just going to remove some of it because we don't need the whole thing. Just going to remove up to here, maybe even a little bit more. And then I'm going to paste this here 5 times actually, because I want 5 cards which might have different text, but for now we just have some placeholder for the text. So I have 5 divs, and let's see what this looks like. You can see that I have my 5 divs with my 5 pieces of text here. And in order to style these, we're just going to give them the same class to all divs. So this will be class, let's say, section 1 text. And I'm going to add this class with Control C and Control V to all of the divs in my section. So they're all the same class. So now I can style them all easily. So I can go to Style CSS, and underneath section, I can select the class section 1 text, and I'm gonna give each card maybe a height of 200 pixels, width be 300 pixels, and a background color of light pink so we can tell exactly where they are. If I save this and refresh, you can see that I now have some cards over here. They seem like they're not ending properly, so widows sorry, so that should be width, of course. Yeah, misspellings happen all the time. So now that I've set the proper property, we should have a width of actually 300 pixels, and we can see our cards in the section. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divs, and the first thing that we notice is that they're arranged in a column. So we want them to be in a row across the screen, and we want them to obviously wrap around. So if the screen gets if the screen shrinks, then we want them to wrap around on the next rows, but we'll see that. So first things, we just want to arrange them in a line, in a row, and this is where Flexbox comes into play. So if we Google Flexbox, one of the first links that you should get is the complete guide to Flexbox from CSS Tricks. If we go to this link, you can start reading the documentation from here. You can read about background and terminology and other things, but then we can get the actual usage. So you can see Flexbox, we have a container, and inside the container we have some elements, and Flexbox helps us arrange these elements on the page. So the first property is display, and we read that this defines a Flex container. So this is the first property that we need in order to start using Flexbox. So let's apply that to our section. Yeah, right. So the Flex property comes on the container, not on the actual divs. So in order to style this section, we're going to give it an ID. I'm going to say section 1, and going to move to Style CSS, and we're going to select it with #section1 section 1. I'm going to use the property to start using flex, so display flex. Save this and go back to our website. You can see that they're now in a straight line. Maybe you can give them some margin so we can see exactly where the cards are. So you can see that they're in a line, but they're not really 300 pixels wide, and if I shrink the window, then they're all kind of trying to fit on one line, and they're kind of we can't really read the text anymore, and it doesn't look good, and obviously this is not what we intend. So if we continue reading the Flexbox guide, you can see that the next property is flex direction, and that determines which direction your divs will go into. So that's a row, this is reverse row, or you can have column, or we can have reverse column. So you can see the property is flex direction. The row is the default one, left to right, which is what we already have, so we don't actually need to change anything on the flex direction. So if we move on to the next one, we have flex wrap, and this sounds like something we need. So by default, flex items will all try to fit onto one line, which is what we're seeing here, that they're trying to fit on the first line. In order to change that, we have a few values. So the property is flex wrap, and the default is no wrap, which is what we're seeing already. But what we do want is wrap. So you can use flex wrap and wrap. That will make sure that the items wrap when the screen size shrinks. So on the section, we have display flex and flex wrap. We want it to wrap. And if we refresh here now, you can see that they are now wrapping around the rows. So on the maximum size screen, we can fit 3 cards on the same screen, but as soon as the screen shrinks, they're wrapping around on the next rows. So that's good. You can all read the whole text now without leaving the divs. So that's good, but I think we don't really like them to be aligned to the left of the screen. We probably would like them aligned somewhere in the middle. So if you continue reading the Flexbox guide, well, the next one is flex flow, and this is a shorthand for flex direction, so that was column or row, and flex wrap, so we can use them together as flex flow, and then we would have row wrap, but because we don't need to set the row as it's already the default, we don't actually need this, so we've already set the wrap. And then if we move on, the next property is justify content, and by looking at the infographics, we can see that this deals with alignment, with vertical alignment, basically horizontal alignment, sorry, basically on the page. So we have flex start, which is aligning the items to the left of the page, flex end, which is aligning to the right, center, which is obviously in the center, and then a few more like space between, space around, and even space around. So this sounds like something that we could use to center our elements. So the property is called justify content, and we see that flex start is the default, which is what we're seeing here, flex start, so all aligned to the left, but we want them centered, so we can use justify content with the value center. So I'm just going to add that here to the section. So section 1, justify content, we have center. If we refresh, you can see that our cards are now centered, and if the window shrinks, they're always in the center of the page. So that's good. That's, I think, one more thing that we can add here would be some padding to the cards so the text doesn't touch the sides completely. Put a padding of 10 pixels. that looks better. And I think that's pretty much done with the basics of section 1. We are just gonna move on to styling the header now, and to laying out the header actually, now that we know how to use Flexbox.